Without further ado, filmmaker Bobcat Goldthwait.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for. Please sit down. No, that's all right. I'm kidding. Nice to meet you. What are we doing?
Why did you want to make a Bigfoot movie?
I've always liked Bigfoot ever since I was a small boy, as opposed to a large boy. I'm Benjamin Buttons. I was really big, and now I'm getting old. And no, I don't know how that worked. I never understood that movie. But I've always liked Bigfoot, and so a while ago I went to Willow Creek, which is a town in Northern California. I put about 1,400 miles on my car driving around looking for Bigfoot and going to all the Bigfoot sites and stuff. I don't know if I told you this. Initially, I was going to do a Christopher Guest kind of movie. Yeah, originally it was going to be like I'd go to a Bigfoot convention and then the movie would be about a Bigfoot convention. But then when I got there, I didn't really have it in me to make fun of people in the Bigfoot community because I realized that I myself am a weirdo and an outsider, and people think I'm a bit of a kook. So the idea of making fun of people that people felt that about didn't seem right. When I was at the Bigfoot convention, most of the people in the Bigfoot world believe Bigfoot has a flat head, not a pointy head. They considered the pointy-headed Bigfoot something that Spielberg came up with for Harry and the Hendersons. So there was a cardboard cutout of a pointy-headed Bigfoot, and this one guy comes up. This guy had a booth, and he has this pointy-headed Bigfoot, and the other guy comes up, and he goes, "You disgust me." And he goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Look at his head." And the guy goes, "Really? I've seen Bigfoot 3 times, and you're never going to see him because you smoke." This guy believed that Bigfoot hates tobacco. But apparently Bigfoot likes weed, because those guys, I've gone squatching a few times now, and a lot of them are on grass. They like weed.
I think anybody who comes up with the term squatching would have to be a little bit high. But
Squatching, well, one time I got out of Willow Creek, I digress, but the place where the movie was made, in order to get to Bluff Creek, where the Patterson-Gimlin footage was shot, it's 2.5 hours down a 17-mile dirt road. And this is a huge park. There's nothing. I mean, planes do get lost in this forest. It's gigantic. And we saw 2 mountain lions when we were filming. But another time when I visited Bluff Creek, we get out of the car and immediately we hear noises. You know, we hear this animal. And they hear this woo, and everyone's scrambling to get their recorders. And I said, I think that sounds like a coyote. And one of the guys that was with goes, "Yeah, well, juvie squatch sometime impersonate other animals." So not only is Bigfoot elusive, he's really good at impressions. He's like the Frank Calihandro of cryptozoology.
So before we get into the movie, I want to know a little bit more about the Bigfoot culture. So I understand, you had one idea that you were going to make a certain kind of movie, and then you realized that it was just an eccentric community who you identified with in some regard. Do most of these people do most of them have a Bigfoot story, or I mean, is that what it takes to get to be a part of that subculture, or are they're just people who are they're just believers?
It's different, There's people who a lot of the Bigfoot enthusiasts that I've encountered that are, really make it their life's work. Some of them haven't had any kind of encounters, but they're it's just something they're passionate about. But when you're up in Willow Creek, everybody has a Bigfoot story, or if not, their family or friends do. Especially the native people up there. Except the woman who runs the gift center, not the gift center. I'm sorry, the visitor center. This town's major industry is Bigfoot, right? And they find this one woman who doesn't believe in Bigfoot. So you go in there and you go, "Have you seen Bigfoot?" She's like, "No, Bigfoot's not real. Cram it." You know what I mean? And you're like, actually, outside of growing pot, Bigfoot is their biggest industry up there.
Incredible. So then how did this story change then? So you were originally going to make a
That's
comedy,
true.
and at what point did you decide that you were going to make something that was scarier? Obviously, there's a lot of humor in this movie, but I would say it shares more with the horror canon than it would comedy.
Well, I was talking to Joe Lynch, the director, and I said I really think this would make a good found footage movie, but found footage is pretty played out. And he said, you're trying to make a musical. You know what I mean? You got to think of found footage as just another kind of movie. Go up and make it, and it'll be your kind of found footage. So I thought, okay. And then when he tells the story, and then he says he called me a week later, and I was up there filming. I kind of, that's the kind of spirit in the movies I make. I don't really wait around I just go forward and start making them.
Well, I think at this point we can look at another clip from the movie.
Wow.
Yeah. As you said, found footage is it's just one way to tell a story, and I
Right.
think it certainly makes sense for.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I for those folks who are just listening to it, there's a screen behind us, and there's a poster that my friend Alex Party made of Bigfoot, but there's just this image of Bigfoot, and it says Bobcat Goldthwait, filmmaker. It looks like I'm Bigfoot. All right.
You do actually have that image on your arm, though.
Yeah. I have a tattoo of that. Yeah. My movies have a very limited promotional budget. So my body is turning into a NASCAR burn suit, I do have a Ed Wood in honor of the movie I did with Robin, because he called me Bob Wood when we made World's Greatest Dad. But or you meant I had him on him because he's hairy. Is that what you meant? Oh, okay. Because that's my thing. I only do movies with hairy creatures that live in Northern California. Maybe that's what what this has in common with the other movies I've made. But found footage. We were speaking before about this at a different festival, but it's true at a film festival that I'm not really a big found footage fan, because I always wonder who found this footage and edited a movie out of it. Who said, well, I'm sorry your family got killed and mutilated, but I really think if we edited out the slow parts until they got killed, they'd have a tremendous picture here. So that was the challenge for me. I was trying to think of how could I make a movie that was a found footage movie and not have a bunch of cuts. There's only there was 67 edits in it. There's a few more because I actually added a few scenes since the film festival.
The other problem that I usually have with found footage is that it's also besides the fact of who would be putting all this together, is I always know that that's going to be fake because it's a movie and there's no way for me to get lost in something when
Right.
I can't imagine that being. But one of the things that I really dig about this movie, and you see that in even just that brief little clip, is you actually took the time to write characters, and it's not just a setup for plot points or whatever the horror that's going to happen. You have this couple who's on the road, and one's the believer and one's the skeptic, and you get to actually take the time to learn who these people are and what their relationship is. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the writing process and even the casting process.
Well, Alexi and Bryce are really old friends of mine now. Not old friends, but friends, and they've both appeared in other movies I made, and it just seemed like they would make a believable couple. They didn't really know each other, but they're just really great actors. And I don't know, there's two things that I was interested in doing this movie. I was wondering if I could make believable characters that you empathized with. That was the biggest challenge. And if the movie works for people, I hope that's the thing. I thought that might separate it from other found footage movies, because often found footage movies are made by people out of desperation. Like you go, well, I can't get a movie, they use it as a calling card because it's the most inexpensive way to make a movie. But not that my other movies have big budgets. I actually did think that making a found footage movie made the most sense in telling the story. So I wanted to use, and not to diminish what other people have done, but I think often in found footage movies the actors aren't so good, and also in found footage movies, something happened in horror, I think, in the late '70s where your protagonists tend to be people you can't wait to see get killed, And I was trying to flip it back to the other side to make characters that you empathize with before terrible things happen to them, so you would feel something, hopefully,
You've primarily worked in comedy, and you're probably best known for comedy. Could you talk a little bit about suspense and working with it, for the first time? Obviously, there's also suspense in comedy, but this was a new thing for you as a filmmaker.
Yeah, that was the other reason I was interested in doing this movie. There's a lot of filmmakers that I really admire that can make these scenes where not much is going on, but you're at the edge of your seat. So the challenge was I was hoping I could try to do something like that. Those scenes in a Tarantino movie where there's nothing going on, but you're really wigged out, or Roman Polanski and David Lynch. These people do that kind of stuff. And I was the challenge of that, But comedy, it turns out, and suspense are really they have so much in common. After I finished the movie, I realized in a suspense movie, you need that scene, like something, you hear a noise, and the people look, and then it's just, the cat knocked over a lamp. And then a minute or two later, or immediately something horrible happens to them. And I realized I didn't have the, oh no, it's just the cat. So that's why I shot the scene with the raccoon. But because I have a scene where you might think, oh, maybe a raccoon's responsible for the noises, the things that are happening with this couple. But it's really expensive to get a raccoon to act in Los Angeles. So my daughter
They all have agents.
Yeah, they got to talk to their people. And so I just approached a raccoon on Twitter. No, I actually, my daughter found a place that rescues raccoons, and we donated some money, and they let me film in a raccoon cage with a real wild raccoon that was recently injured, and he was on the mend. So he was kind of dodgy. He was a little crazy. I was really nervous. I go, how did he get hurt? It wasn't like by another 80s comedian. You know what I mean? It wasn't, Gilbert Gottfried didn't hit him with a bike or something, right? And so they let the raccoon out, and he just comes. I'm in a cage with a raccoon, and I made the bottom of the floor look like the floor of the forest and put some trees in. So they let this raccoon, and he just ran right up my leg. And it was a wild raccoon, and he just kind of held on my pocket like he was riding a subway. And then the raccoon goes like that, like that. And the woman, and she's outside the cage going, that's a happy noise. He likes you. I'm like, I'm glad, because I just peed a little. I'd love to tell you I'm a better man than this, but eventually I petted the raccoon on the head, and I started crying. It was a wild raccoon. He let me pet it. It was pretty good. I like animals.
That's a sweet, tender moment. I'm glad you shared that one.
But my ex-wife, she said, "You're a misanthrope." And I said, "You're only saying that because you're a human." But I love little animals though, and I like some people.
We were talking about suspense before. I want to show another clip, and then we'll discuss. It's actually the longest shot in the entire movie. Should we set this up beforehand? I know we're only going to watch like a minute.
We're going to see a little bit of the scene, but the scene is actually 19 minutes long in the movie, and there's no cuts. So, so we'll show a little bit of it.
So we'll show the next one.
That scene is very long, and like I said, we shot it at Willow Creek, and it's about 2 or 3 in the morning when we filmed it. And the first take of that scene, Bryce, who plays Jim, started crying because things get worse. And I said, that was a really good take. I just don't think your character would cry. and he said, "My character's not crying. I'm crying. Why are we filming this out in the woods? We could shoot in a parking lot at a hotel. Nobody knows we're really here." I was like, "That's really good. Let's just do it again. Don't cry this time."
So do tell. I mean, again, as I was saying, that this is the first time that you've worked with making a scary movie. How do you, what were some of the techniques that you used to make a shot that goes on for that long, without it dragging? I mean, besides him crying, and how many times did you shoot it? Were there any things that you did to try to, heighten the?
Yeah, we would. It was. Like I said, it was in the middle of the night. It was right after we had seen Mountain Lion, so it was kind of scary. But the real reason one of the reasons I chose to do it that way is different things happened to them through that scene. They didn't know what was going to happen. We did talk about what the scene was, and the first time some things happened, then the take that's in the movie I thought was the right, and then the third take, I think things got way over the top. But, those noises and sounds, the majority of them are done live. So I just thought that helped a lot with everything, I mean, instead of them going, instead of saying, and then at this point you hear this, and then you look that way, most of the stuff was recorded and made live on location while they were in the tent.
Since people haven't had a chance to see the film yet, it's hard to discuss, some of the things because there's so many pleasures that go see the movie. It's opening tomorrow night, VOD theatrically.
Well, I mean, if this is the kind of crowd I draw, I can't imagine how huge the crowd will be for the movie.
There's almost 1,000 people here, Bobcat.
Yeah, I know.
Bobcat. What if we could backtrack way before Willow Creek? What made you want to get into filmmaking in the first place? I mean, was there a certain itch that you felt you weren't scratching creatively?
I think it was the movie Hot to Trot.
So we do end up talking about Hot to Trot.
I know, you can't avoid it. No, when I made that movie, I was really frustrated. And it kind of inspired me to start making my own movies, kind of put me on my own trajectory of going, well, if this knucklehead can direct, I think anybody could. And then and I realized that I'd have to make my own movies in order to tell stories instead of waiting around and doing it within the system and stuff.
So, from all of your time on film sets in front of a camera, what were some of the things that you knew already before you ever made your first film, that maybe things that you even take with you now, having a few films under your belt?
I think that the whole process, sometimes I look at my career and I wonder if I would have done it differently, but it all kind of helped teach me and get me ready to make movies at the end of the day. The first time I was in a movie, the first police academy movie I was in, I didn't know where to stand. I didn't know. Thank you very much. We should note that beach balls suddenly broke out, and people started doing the wave here at the Apple store in Soho. The wave? How old am I? They're making a new police academy. They're rebooting it. And I said they're going to do what they did to 21 Jump Street. They're going to make it a comedy this time. But, but those movies taught me where to stand, and I worked with a lot of different great directors. I worked with, Richard Donner and Jerry Paris, who actually kind of taught me a lot about comedy. And so it all kind of influenced. I should have known earlier on in my life that I wanted to be a guy who made movies, because whenever a movie would come out, I didn't look at the stars or anything. I'd look right at the bottom of the poster and see who it was written and directed by. And Mel Brooks, I think, was a huge hero of mine growing up, and sometimes, I know I make different kinds of movies, but, I think people don't realize, Mel Brooks, he did Elephant Man, he produced that, his tastes weren't, he didn't do the same thing all the time either. So.
I know you're a big film fan, film buff. Could you talk about maybe filmmakers who have not influenced you, but just inspired you? People who you wouldn't necessarily see, that you have a direct connection to them in your work, but are definitely people you
like
think
my
about.
heroes is
Sure.
like Bob Fosse is probably the biggest one, because he would do the movie Lenny and then do Sweet Charity and then do Cabaret, and he did all these different kinds of movies, Star 80, and he just made really good movies, and he wasn't really caught up in making the same movie over and over again. I'm a big fan of Preston Sturges, which, these are people that I don't necessarily think, you would, if you've seen the movies I make, I don't really think you'd necessarily think of by watching them, but those are definitely heroes of mine.
Oh, I think this is a good time to turn this over to the audience for questions.
Hi, I'm your big fan. And
Hi.
I think you're a great director. I forgot the title, but I love the movie. You were Clown, then Julie Brown was in the movie.
Shakes the Clown.
Yeah, I like that movie, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah. Then you were so funny.
Oh,
So,
thanks.
okay, my question about your voice. Because you speak really normal. Your voice is so normal. But in Instagram, you speak like this. Hey, how are you? Like this,
That was pretty
How are
good.
you doing? I can do that. I can do that.
I think it was good. I actually thought that was good.
Yeah. So, was
He might be good for the Police Academy reboot.
I think you're good for the
then
reboot.
Then you spoke like that in Scrooge too, Scrooge.
A little bit, yeah, I dialed it down.
Was it your idea or somebody told you need to do the voice?
They said you need to do that voice or
then
you're out of here.
Then how did you come up with the idea? Thank you so much.
No, well, the idea was I never really was comfortable. Thank you for the kind words. My early stand-up, I wasn't even doing stand-up. I'd just go on stage and cry and read a Dear John letter or gut a fish or something. And then, I'd be in tears, reading a Dear John letter. I'd start my act, then stop, and then cry. And then I knew people want to hear jokes, and then I'd start doing a regular act, My wife is so fat. And like, how fat is she? I told you I don't even have a girlfriend. What is wrong with you people? So it was more kind of like that kind of stuff. And I felt being myself was really terrifying, and I was uncomfortable. Plus, all the people I admired when I grew up, like Andy Kaufman or Brother Theodore, or even people like, Abbott and Costello. As a kid, I was aware that Groucho Marx actually stood erect when he walked around. He didn't slump over, and he didn't, So I just kind of felt, well, that was how you did comedy, by slouching over. No, by doing a persona. So the character came out of nervousness. It wasn't like somebody that I saw and said, I want to imitate that person. And no one ever asked me to do it in a movie, especially lately. No, no, but I always say that I retired from acting the same time they stopped hiring me, so it worked out well. But I got trapped in that character out of my own laziness, not because that's what the film people who made movies was expecting of me. It was much easier and lazier for me to do that than to come up with a new persona or to actually memorize dialogue and stuff. So it was a bit of my own laziness, but I don't think showbiz really. I don't think like the industry typecast people. I think the general public's expectations for you can typecast it, but you just have to be polite.
Well, I mean, now you got to tell the other side of that. Is at what moment did you decide I don't need to do this? Because your comedy doesn't include this anymore.
No. Well, yeah, I think it just I'm a big Jerry Lewis fan, but then like in those later pictures when he's still doing that character, it's a little uncomfortable. So I think it was probably when my testicles dropped even lower. Maybe that was it. They never tell you that. And in high school and stuff, and they tell young girls that, their bodies are going to change. But I wish someone told me that like at 45, my nuts were going to be down by my knees, no one, they didn't give me a heads up. There isn't hello God, it's me Margaret for men. There's not hello God, it's me Stan. Yeah, maybe like a plumber with his ass crack hanging out, talking to God, wondering why his nuts keep descending.
So back to scary movies. I don't think we're that far apart in age, Bobcat. When you were young, do you remember?
How's your balls?
Not bad, actually.
Oh, good.
Anyway, I was going to say that, do you remember as a kid this pseudo-documentary called The Legend of Boggy Creek?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I mean, was this at all
Definitely
inspired by that?
Definitely. There's certain movies that I know that were inspired by Legend of Boggy Creek, and I don't want to give away the movie too much, but there's certainly it helped me in the decision on how I made this movie, because I found that movie really scary as a kid, and so I kind of, no pun intended, I aped it. Yeah, snappity-doo. I still got it. That's why I only do 2 shows a night. So, so that movie, and the movies that influence this movie, I think people would be surprised if they go and check it out. But I think Grizzly Man actually had a lot to do with it, the Werner Herzog movie. And then, believe it or not, Paper Heart, which was a movie Charlene Yee made. And she did this thing where they told a narrative movie, but they used real people, much like we do in this movie. So I thought, I'll do that same thing.
What were the Grizzly Man connections? I mean, I can think about it to some extent, but
this guy's drive, his drive, and the fact that he is, people go, why are these people still have their camera on? It's like that guy had the camera on all the way till being eaten by bears, and it was his naive enthusiasm that was his downfall, and I just thought that would be who Bryce would be, yeah. So that movie did influence it, and obviously I'm fully aware of the Blair Witch similarities. I didn't go back and revisit Blair Witch, which I kind of wish I did before I made it, because maybe I could have separated a little bit more. But Blair Witch is a great movie, and what people who, when they do found footage, they try to be so different from it, they lose what makes it. It's like making, I'm sorry, people are going to go in the woods, and the camera's going to be jiggly, because that's how it goes. It's like making a Western without horses. This is what has to happen in a found footage movie. But I'd like to point out that the very first found footage movie is the actual Patterson Gimlin footage of Sasquatch walking through the woods, because it's the first movie, 2 people out in the woods. People argue to this day if it's real or not. There was a rumor that John Landis was actually in the suit in the Patterson Gimlin footage, so I wrote him an email. I don't know him. I got his email. I kind of stretched the truth and said I was writing an article for a magazine, and I sent him. And immediately I get this email back. It says, "I most certainly am not in the Sasquatch suit in the Patterson Gimlin footage. What magazine are you writing an article for? How did you get my email?" But then we kind of smoothed it out, and he was fine. I think he's happy to dispel the rumor that it's not him in the alleged suit in the Bigfoot movie. But, when we filmed the movie, I was out in the woods, obviously, and, one of the Bigfoot experts that was there, he was a ranger, and he said to me, he goes, this is, right after we see all these scary animals out in the woods, and he's like, I'm a writer too. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, what do you write? He goes, well, I write, Twilight. I go, well, yeah, of course we all know Twilight. He goes, well, I write coming-of-age stories for tweens set in the Bigfoot community. And I go, oh, what's your book? And he goes, well, one of them's Yeti or Not. So it's available on, I don't know, on Amazon. I got it on eBay.
How is it? Did you read it?
Yeah. I think he wants me to make it into a feature. He's gonna be disappointed that that's
How
not
did
my
how did
next
the
movie.
Bigfoot community react to you once you knew that you were not going to be doing a piss take on their community? Like, how did they?
The majority of them seem to really like it because I'm not making fun of them. I mean, but there's still, hopefully, if you see the movie, that there's some laughs in it, I hope, for folks. But it's not at the expense of at them. And I think they like it because, when I went to make the movie, it was it was difficult because they didn't trust me because Bob Saget had been there about a half a year before, and he did a thing on Bigfoot, and he kind of made fun of him. And I had to convince them. It's like, no, I'm not like Bob Saget. They just clump us all together.
Hi. First off, I want to thank you for giving Bob Fosse props like that, because All That Jazz was one of the movies that showed me that, wait, this is the same guy who danced Steam Heat.
Yeah.
And so it was really great there. I actually have two questions. One is, I show your movies to a bunch of friends who are always like, wait, that's him who directed this? And it's always, always get positive feedback from that, and seeing the positive feedback from, online from all the movies coming out. Are you getting any kind, and you even mentioned now, though, you don't want to work for the machine, if you will. Are you getting any, offers that way and trying to? I mean, because I could see you doing it successfully. Is that happening, or are you sticking to the independent, no, I just want to do my own stuff?
Yeah, I kind of stick to my own thing, I have some people that are nice enough to believe in me and help me out with some of them, but yeah, I've stayed away from it. And, after I had a movie at Sundance, that's the normal thing, is like you get a movie and then you go out and try to get in the studios. But I sold out when I was a young man, so as an old man, I'm not interested in it, except if it's for Snickers, because they make a great candy bar. It's delicious. But no, but I really try to do. I'm just too old to try to make things that I don't believe in or work with people that I don't care about. So I direct a lot of television for friends or people who I admire. I do stand-up, and I just do these things so I don't have to be on reality shows, because I get asked to be on all of them. By the way, here's a scoop. I am doing Finding Bigfoot, though.
I'm not familiar with the show.
Oh, how could you not know Finding Bigfoot? Think of Drag Race, but out in the woods. No, I don't know.
Why am I now imagining everybody in drag in the woods?
I don't know.
Bigfoot
I was
too?
trying to find out what shows you watch. It's exactly what it is. It's Animal Planet's like #1 to #2 highest rated show, and it's exactly what you think. So I'm gonna go out in the woods with a couple of the folks from Finding Bigfoot and go look for Bigfoot. Look, the worst night looking for Bigfoot is still just camping. You know what I mean? If you don't find Bigfoot, it's not embarrassing. You went camping. It was a pretty nice time,
And just one last thing I just want to ask, because I noticed from the trailer, I haven't seen this yet, and I will see it this weekend probably.
Thanks.
But there was the dragging of the camera, which very reminiscent of a lot of the stuff that Sam Raimi has done in the early Evil Dead. Was that intentional, influenced? Was it just something,
I bet you subconsciously. I really love Sam's movies. I mean, there's somebody who's made movies on his own terms and then done big studio things. So I don't know. Maybe it's possible. I just don't know if but I am a Sam Raimi fan. But I don't know if I could. I don't know. It's really weird that I do all these genre film festivals promoting this movie, and they're all there's such do you know what I mean? It's as if legit film is the drunken stepfather to the genre film community, because they all think, they go, you like scary movies? They're nervous. It's like, yeah, why don't I? I like good movies, I like all kinds of movies, and that's why I made this movie too. Was I just like making movies.
Hi there. Just quickly, I've enjoyed all your movies. They're great.
Thanks.
Can't wait to watch this one. Just want to ask a question. When you or your cast and crew, when you were being in and around everybody who are believers in Bigfoot, did any of your cast and crew get swayed into it, or any of your cast and crew, did anybody believe in Bigfoot before?
Sure,
the movie?
yeah. Bryce is totally in, who plays Jim, so he was perfect. So when he was speaking with these folks, there was nothing snarky about what he had to say, you know. And I always say that I want to live in a world where the possibility of Bigfoot exists, you know. And I was on Fox News the other morning, the local affiliate here in New York, and I didn't even realize what I was saying, but I said that, you know, I'm an atheist, but I believe in Bigfoot because I have friends who've actually heard and seen Bigfoot. And I forgot you don't say you're an atheist on Fox. The guy goes, "Wait a minute, you're an atheist?" And then we went to a commercial, and when we took a picture, he wouldn't stand next to me. It was really awkward. Like he was gonna, I don't know what was gonna happen. I don't know, but it was kind of funny.
So when you're working with the actors, what do you think is the hardest part of to try to tell them to evoke a certain feeling? Like, I mean, obviously they're gonna be scared, right? But what do you feel that you have to say, like, remember this scene, or you know, remember something from your life, you know?
Yeah, you know, thanks. That's a good question. You know, the hardest part is in any kind of movie, I think, is making an environment for an actor to feel comfortable that they can take chances, and they're not going to be, you know, that they're supported. You know, so I felt, you know, I really knew these guys well, and they collaborated a lot. So it wasn't really trying to pull a performance out of them. But like I said, sometimes we would do it and say, well, maybe you wouldn't be this hysterical, or vice versa. But when I work with actors, I really, because I spent time on the other side of the camera, you know, the biggest key is to make them feel that they can fail, and that they're not going to be laughed at, ridiculed, or it's not going to end up in the movie. And once you make people feel that safe, you get really great stuff out of them, you know. I mean, we were talking about, I did the movie World's Greatest Dad with Robin Williams, and I think people work with Robin, and they used to kind of act, don't put him in the process and want him to just be funny, or I don't know, I think they talk, you know what I mean? So I was nervous. I've known him since I was 19 years old, and I was very nervous that when we started that movie, you know what I mean? Like, I was going to say, okay, we need to do a take, and this time we're going to be really quiet. And I thought he was going to say, you know, I have an Academy Award, and you're in Police Academy, you know. I think we'll do it my way. But it was the direct opposite. You know, I think he really liked the collaboration, you know.
Last but not least, then, what scares you? What are some of the things that you cull from when you're working on trying to convey fear in a movie?
Well, I think maybe you hit on what all my movies might have similar, and that's being alone. You know, coming to terms with being alone. Being alone is scary, so that's probably why these people, that it is scary that these people are all alone. Or if it works for you. But yeah, I just realized that.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It's got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes as of right now, so everyone go see it.
96 on Rotten Tomatoes, yeah.
And once again, Bobcat Goldthwait.
Hey.